Welcome to Speed and Color, a podcast and YouTube channel about custom motorcycle culture. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to get all the latest content. You can also follow Speed and Color on Instagram. We hope you enjoy the show.
Well, now that the sound deadening is done, it's time to start building structures in the back of this thing. So in the van, I'm going to use, I decided to use 80/20, and I'll be showing you more of this. But this is 80/20 aluminum extrusion. It's 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. It comes with the slots on all four sides. There's different extrusions you can get. This is available in Canada through Uline. It's pretty easy to access. It's reasonably, for what it is, it's reasonably priced. Unfortunately, they don't offer other profiles. They just offer this specific one. But this is going to work fine for what I want to do with the bed and a couple cabinets, stuff like that. Worth noting, this is not going to be like the current Sprinter vans, and I don't know, what's the Ford one called? There's one called a ProMaster or something. I don't even know what all the new vans are. This van, it's a 76. They were never made to stand up in. I'm not going to cut the roof out to put one of those extensions on it or anything. It's too cool the way it is. So limited roof height. Obviously we're not going to build a shower or any of that kind of stuff in here. I'm thinking maybe I'll put a DC charger and a deep cycle battery in. We'll carry a Honda generator with us to take care of things. We'll have a bed, some kind of cooler so that we can keep some simple food items cool and stuff. Probably get a new camp stove and keep it, somewhere under the bed or something where there'll be storage. The big challenge for me is that I have to build the bed with the center section removable, so that I can get the bike in. So the bed's going to be lengthwise in the van is going to be 6 feet. So when the center of the bed comes out, that is going to be my ramp, if you will. So I'll have a 6-foot ramp to get up the back. My plan is to put some kind of a winch up here at the front, just at the back of the seats. The width between the side structures, let's call them, the width of the aisle up the center is going to be 24 inches. I've measured both of the choppers I have here. They're both less than 24. They're actually less than 22. It's not going to be easy, but it will be wide enough to bring them in with the pegs folded up, and to bring them up here. I've got an idea for a device to winch with, and I'll show you that later. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think it might work. So I'm going to be working on that here in a bit. The other thing I was thinking is that if I need more width in the center section, because on the passenger side here, I've got the spare tire at the back, which is why we're running the bed lengthwise. We want to be able to sleep lengthwise rather than cross. You'd go across in most vans, but most vans, they take the spare tire out of here. Problem with that is I don't want to mount the spare tire on the back door. I don't want to make a modification like that. As I've said before, I want the outside of this thing to stay just the way it is for now. With 5 or more years of use, will it be ready for a paint job? It might be that you have to paint it at some point, but it's just so cool the way it is now. I don't want to touch the outside. So I don't want to hang a spare tire on the back or anything like that. So thinking about the spare tire on this side and the way the bed is going to be built, And the fact that it stops at the sliding door here, 6 feet, by the way, is right to this beam, which is really handy. So being that this side really isn't going to have a lot of storage or anything, a little bit underneath there, not a ton, I'm thinking that I could make this structure fairly easy to pop out. So if you had to access the spare tire, you would pop this section out. Or if we're hauling a bike that's wider than 24 inches for some reason, we could take this side out, which would give us lots of room across here to, that'd give us more like 4 feet to be able to load and strap down a motorcycle. So those are kind of the thoughts. That's where I'm going with this. Now, what I wanted to tell you about right now is we talked about the 80-20 a little bit. Cutting aluminum, I want to be able to cut it properly. So I decided to invest in something that I've wanted to have for a long time. I do have a Bosch carbide disc chop saw, 14-inch. Works great for steel. For the limited amount of cutting I do, it's been great to have around and everything. It is up for sale right now. Hopefully it'll be sold by the time you see this video, but if it's not, if you want one, let me know. Anyway, chop saw is not what you want to use for cutting aluminum. So I've been wanting to invest in a dry cut, cold cut, whatever you want to call it, saw. And Evolution, from what I've read and looked at and stuff, Evolution seems to make pretty good ones. Now, there's a wide price range on these things, and you can go right from, well, this one was about $260 on Amazon. This is the Rage 4 that I went with. It's a 7 1/4 inch. It will handle the material I'm working with, and the material that I work with 95, 99% of the time. It will handle steel, round, mild steel, tube, square tube, all kinds of stuff. So it'll do a lot of the things I do now with the 14-inch saw. But 14-inch Evolution, I mean, the Cadillac one is almost $1,400 Canadian. They range down. There's good selection in that, I would say, in that $500 to $800 kind of range, which honestly still seemed a little rich for my blood. For the amount that I use it, it seemed like a lot of money. $260. This one seems to get pretty good reviews. For doing this, it's going to be just fine. I am going to have to make sure that I get a setup so that, I make sure I get my cuts straight for this stuff going together. It's just going to require a spacer under the other end of the piece and making sure that I get it clamped down square in the saw. But it should work just fine. So this is what I'm gonna go with. It just showed up today, and I thought I would unbox it right now with you here, and I can kind of give you my initial impression. There are reviews out there and stuff, so you can get lots of information on this saw. Good old Amazon. It did show up in decent condition, which is always nice. Okay. Instructions, warranty, typical stuff. Some hardware here for something that I don't understand yet, but that's good. Safety glasses, ear protection. We're already covered on that stuff, but it's nice that they sent it along. Decent packaging, obviously. And this thing is not real heavy. That's one of the things that a lot of people in reviews commented on. It's a nice saw for portability, for being able to move to job sites, stuff like that. I'm just going to pull that out of there because that's garbage and that's recycle. Get that out of the way. I'll have to look at all the pictures on the box there later. And here we are. I'll just get this plastic bag off of here. So there it is. Nice little package. I'm not going to bore you with getting this all set up at this point. I'll show you once I've got it done. But as I say, the thing I'm going to have to do, what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to cover the subwoofer and the amps and everything. I'll put a cover over that because I'm kind of tight on space. And you know what? It works so well to have the 8-foot lengths in here in the van. I'm just going to set this up in the van for doing a bunch of my cutting. And what I need to come up with is a spacer that will support the other end of the extrusion at the same height as the cutting deck here, or I guess it's the cutting deck, whatever you want to call it. So I'll need to come up with something there, and that'll be good. It'll hold it level. The van makes for a good spot, easy to vacuum up chips and stuff, and we should be able to work just fine. So I'm going to get this all set up so I can make my first cut, and I'll record more when I'm ready to start cutting. All right. Well, I've got it all set up. As it turns out, and this is really cool, once I got this set up and was able to take a measurement of the height of the, what do you call this? The work surface, let's say. Once I got a height on this, turns out that it's 1.5 inches, which is exactly what I'm working with. So I was able to support the extended end of the extrusion with another piece of extrusion. Once I have short pieces, then I'll have lots to support that end with. So that's pretty cool. That worked out really well. I haven't covered that yet, and I'm going to do that right now. Hold on. Okay, there we go. We got the subwoofer covered up, so we're not going to have an issue there. I've marked this to 72 inches, which I'm sure is where I want to be. Man, this stuff, I will tell you, it isn't cheap. However, the option of fastening wood inside the van and drilling a whole bunch of holes and working with wood and everything, this to me looks like a much nicer option. So I'm excited about this 80/20 stuff. And man, these safety goggles stink. I don't know if you've ever tried a new pair of these, but they smell like a frickin' skunk. Mind you, the good thing is I do make them look good. I know, I got that. Anyway, so they tell you in the instructions, one thing I'm not impressed with, it's got that typical plasticky power cord. I really hate that stuff that isn't very flexible. It's not very nice. What I've done is run the power cord off to the side underneath what I'm cutting past my leg to keep it as much out of the way as possible. I sure prefer it when they put a nice quality rubber soft, you know, you can move it around, get it out of the way. To me, it works a lot nicer. But anyway, that's minor detail in the big picture. So I've got this all set up. I want to try a cut and see how it's going to work. And I figured I might as well cut something to length and see what happens here. So I've got it set up. I've marked it. I've checked it for square. Everything looks good. They do say turn this thing on and let it run for a little bit just to make sure everything's good. They say that if there's a problem with the blade, it may shatter at this point. That's reassuring for sure. But I'm going to try it here and see what happens. So we'll pull the trigger. If we can figure, oh, there. That seems to work okay. It's noisy. I see why they give you the earplugs now. It is quite loud, but other than that, it seems fine. So let's see how it cuts. Okay. Lots of chips. I get that. But it is, I mean, they are dry. They're not hot. You know, you don't need lubrication on this, whatever. The quality of the cut, and I can tell already, boy, I got to tell you, that is a beautiful, beautiful cut. That is very workable as a finished cut. As long as it's square, which I'm going to check it with the square here in a second. If I have to make any minor adjustments, I will. But that produced two really nice pieces for me. I understand, and I have to check it here with a tap and with a gauge, but I understand that this is a quarter. Let me see if I can help a little bit here. If I move the light over there. This is a quarter, or it's drilled for a 1/4 inch tap. I would assume 1/4 20, not 1/4 28. A 1/4 20. Yeah, I guess that's close. It might be for a 5/16, but we'll check it and see. So you can tap it and come on the end with a fastener. There's all kinds of different ways to attach this, and I'll get into some of that. You know, a big part of that is what's available in Canada. I know you watch YouTube videos and they talk about, all these different fasteners they have and everything. Yeah, on Amazon.com, but they're not on Amazon.ca. So that we'll have to see what happens there. But initially, as far as this Evolution Rage 4 first cut, beautiful, really nice. Yeah, I watched a video today. I'll share it with you. I watched a video today from a guy. I don't know. I've certainly seen much more experienced, much better van builders than this young man. I know he's trying and everything, but he had his DeWalt miter saw because you could make angles and get really accurate cuts and on a stand and everything else. I'm thinking he was using a wood miter saw. And when he cut, man, there was edges all around here, pieces. It, you know, I mean, it worked, and you could clean it up, and I guess it would be okay. But you know, you gotta know what you're working with. You gotta know your tools and what you're doing. And this saw is definitely meant for cutting this kind of material, and you can just see by the cleanness of the cut, it's just really, really nice. So for an inexpensive option, as long as you set it up right and check everything and check your squareness and stuff, yeah, it may not be as fancy as that DeWalt miter saw he was using. I'll tell you what, it made a way nicer cut than what I saw on his stuff. So real good Evolution at this point. Thumbs up. Decent product, working well. For Bruce, for doing his 80/20 inside this van, we'll start cutting some pieces and start assembling the one side, and I'll let you know how it turns out. I think it's going to be kind of cool. We'll be back with more on the van. Hey, how you doing? Okay, here we are working away on the aluminum extrusions that we're using to make the cabinets and the bed frame and stuff for the van. Really cool stuff. I've been learning a ton about this stuff, watching a bunch of YouTube videos, getting a bunch of different information. I think I already showed you the saw, my new Evolution saw. That thing is the bomb. It's working just great. So everything is going well. The pieces are coming together, and I'm going to show you some of the assembly here in a few minutes. I'm just going to do these updates as I'm working because things come up and I want to talk to you, share ideas and hopefully a little knowledge with you along the way. So first thing on the topic of the saw, I've watched a couple videos where guys have talked about using their miter saw and supposedly getting a different blade that is meant for metal, which I'm looking at the blade they're using and it doesn't look anything like the blade I'm using. And using a miter saw, you know, my understanding of a dry cut or cold cut saw is that it's different from a chop saw in that the RPM is different. The blade design obviously is hugely different. Mine has little, carbide sharpened tips on the teeth and stuff. I don't know what these other guys are doing. When the blade blows up and takes a chunk of your rip fence or whatever you want to call it, your guard, takes a chunk of that with it. Holy smokes. I get why you don't want to use that saw. I totally get it. That fellow recommended that, it's really tough to cut this stuff. So rather than risk it, you should maybe just mark out all your pieces and take them to somebody to have them cut. Or he recommended buying a chop saw with a carbide, not a carbide. Are they carbide? Anyway, with an abrasive disc, typically the kind of chop saw they use for steel, lots of sparks, dirty, all kinds of stuff. They work, yes. Are they refined? Maybe not. But that guy's recommending this for aluminum. Now, I don't think I want to use that kind of saw for cutting aluminum where I want nice cuts, nice finished ends. That stuff works. It's abrasive. It's working with heat and I don't think it's the way to cut aluminum anyway. And a miter saw, a DeWalt miter saw for doing carpentry work is not the way to go. And I'm not sure about the blade issue. Like I say, the blade did not look anything like mine. I'm here to tell you that Evolution saw works absolutely fine. There is no issue. Yes, you get a lot of chips off of it. However, there's no heat. The surfaces are clean. It's as close to a factory cut or factory finish as I think you're ever going to get. They're not super expensive. I paid $261 Canadian for mine, and it's doing just fine with this stuff. They go up to like $1,400 or darn close to it. Does the $1,400 one cut better? It should. I would hope that it would. Is it warranted? Maybe. I guess that depends on your needs. If you're doing one van, you're never going to cut aluminum again. This is a one-off deal. I'd say, maybe you do want to get somebody else to cut it. Maybe it's not worth buying a saw. In my case, this is not the only time I'm going to use this stuff. I love it. It's fantastic. And even if it's the only time I use this, I will cut other aluminum with it, and probably steel and whatever. So yeah, the saw for me is a worthwhile investment. I sold my old chop saw, my carbon disc, whatever, abrasive disc saw. I sold that for $125 here the other day. So, you know what? That's almost half the cost of the new saw. I'm happy with that. So that's my input on saws is, you know what? If you're gonna do it once, yeah, okay, it's a decision. If you're doing van conversions and doing this for, for profit, for a living, man, bite the bullet and buy a decent saw. You know, $500 to $700 Canadian gets you into a really good saw. And if you're doing sprinters and making all kinds of money, hey, buy the $1,400 one. You'll think it's well worth it once you have it, for sure. But don't play around with miter saws and blades that aren't right and stuff like that. That's just dangerous and doesn't produce a good product. Now, talking about that, obviously there's different levels of quality. Obviously one guy I watched, I saw his joints, and man, he had, in spots, it had to be a 1/4 inch of one extrusion sticking out past the upright, and he was quite happy with that. I guess he doesn't let perfection get in the way of good enough. Yeah. It is what it is. People have different expectations, and if your expectation is that you're within a 1/4 inch of the end of the piece, well, okay, good enough. Knock yourself out, do it. But I also noticed that, he had lots of good information, don't get me wrong, but cheaper tools, cheaper drill bits, cheaper step bits. So a lot of his tools were not what I would call professional grade. And again, if you're doing a one-off, I get it. Go to Canadian Tire, go wherever. But if you're doing this, as a sideline business or as a main business, I think it's worth investing in the good stuff. And the one guy I watched, that was his whole take too. What the heck is his name? Humble Road on YouTube. Humble Road. Humble as in, what's another word for humble? Anyway, good guy, nice guy, seems to know a ton about this stuff. Definitely take a look at his stuff, and he seemed to have quality tools and be doing a real nice job. Background on 80/20. You might want to know this because I didn't until the other day, and I know there's lots of people that say 80/20. What does that mean? And 80/20, from what I understand, is actually the company name or the manufacturer name for the extrusion. Very similar extrusions are available under many other manufacturers' names. So it's like a car. The extrusion is a car. You don't have to buy the Honda. You can buy a Chev or a Ford or a Maserati, whatever. But 80/20 is one of the manufacturers out there. From what I gather, probably a leader in the game. I don't know if they originated this stuff. Their stuff's really nice. So 80/20 is the manufacturer. These are aluminum extrusions, commonly referred to as T-slot. So if you're trying to Google it, look it up. T-slot is also a way to go, and that'll get you other brands as well. In Canada, Amazon.ca, there's tons of stuff on Amazon, and you have to sort through that. The other company that handles it that I'm using is Uline. Uline has a very limited offering. I'll warn you on that right now. But for what I'm doing, they've got like 90% of what I need. So in the 80/20 line, they have different series of these. So these aluminum extrusions are available in a variety of sizes. So series, I believe they call it series 10, is 1 inch by 1 inch. Series 15 is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Series 20 is 20 millimeter. So 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter. Series 30 is 30 millimeter by 30 millimeter. And 40 is obviously 40 by 40. And there's even a 45, which I haven't seen anywhere, but apparently it's available. So I did not realize, I was trying to figure out when I was looking on Amazon and I was seeing, 40/40, and I was thinking, well, what is that? And I'd look at the dimensions and it was close to, I think 40/40 is close to the 1.5 inches. I was saying, well, that should work. It's only off by, by a little bit, 1/10 or whatever, of an inch. And some of the stuff does work. I got some corner brackets that are just fine. They're probably metric bolts, not necessarily ideal, but the stuff works. But what Uline has is 80/20 series 15, so 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And they have a couple different fasteners, a few different brackets. Like I say, it's a very limited offering, but it is all 80/20 stuff for the 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Fair warning, this stuff's expensive. Okay? Lengths, 8-foot lengths, if you buy it, now this is Canadian pricing, if you buy 4 or more, and I think there's another price break at 12, but if you buy 4 or more, they're $106 for an 8-foot length. Yeah, are they worth it? Hell yeah. Do you want to be careful about your wastage? Hell yeah. You don't want to be lopping off 5-inch pieces of this that you just keep throwing in the garbage. You want to think your cuts and your lengths through and do a little calculating and figure out what your best way to go is, your most efficient route. So a little bit expensive, but really, really good. So I'm very happy with the product. I'm happy that I understand the series and stuff now, and away we go. One thing that I'm doing, you've got the fasteners that slide down the slots, and you'll see those, and you have different brackets and corner brackets and ways to put this together. The one thing I'm doing on a lot of my joints, there is also a hole drilled in the center of this, and I can lock this down again. There's a hole drilled in the center of that. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, I don't know where it's going to look best. Anyway, that hole is very, very close to being the correct size for a 5/16 national course tap. 5/16 national course is 5/16 18. And like I say, it's very, very close. I think the drill bit for 5/16 national course is a number 7. I have a couple of them here. I tried a number 7 and it doesn't quite fit. And because it's aluminum, if you've got a good tap, a good quality tap, it's going to cut through it. I thought about drilling this out to the right size drill, but the problem is it's so close to being the right size, you'd almost want to have this set up in a milling machine or something where you could really be centered and then you're going to go in and you're just going to take, a minimal amount of material. And I thought about it and I looked at it, and for the time involved in running over to Protospace and setting it up and doing all of that, because I don't think you can be accurate enough on a drill press, and you sure as heck don't want to do it by hand. So I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try tapping it. And sure enough, I've got decent quality taps here, and it taps beautifully. So then you're set up for a 5/16. What you do, give me a second, I'll grab a piece here. Take a piece, and you want to use slightly bigger than 5/16 drill bit. Drill through the center, and I will tell you that I think I'm 2 sizes up from a 5/16. Anyway, it just touches the sides, which is kind of nice, because I know when I'm centered is when the drill bit just leaves a mark on each side going through there. So on short pieces like this, I've been able to lock it down in the drill press, which works really, really nice. On something like a 6-foot or an 8-foot piece, I just don't have the space, and I mean, it would just about tip the drill press over, and my vise isn't that big and stuff. So I have been doing those by hand. Little shaky, but you can get it done. Then what I use for a fastener is a 5/16 socket head. I believe that's what they call them. So a 5/16 socket head bolt and a 5/16 flat washer. The flat washer slides in here just beautifully. Bolt drops through, and with the end tapped out for a 5/16 thread, this is going on to here. When you tighten this down, what it's going to do is it's going to bend that washer, and it's going to pull the head up inside here, so you're going to be flush. You're not going to have the head sticking down. And when it bends that washer, then it really gets some strength as you tighten it down. So the bolt's not going to pull through. It's going to kind of lock it in the channel. It seems to work really well. Doing that and a corner bracket makes this thing super strong. Super strong. Really, really good. So I'm really happy with the way that's working out. Oh yeah, and the other thing you have to do, because when you drill your first hole, you're just trying to drill a hole in that center section for the bolt to pass through, and you don't want too much play in there. Then the head has to be able to fit in the channel. So you'll notice there's a bigger, that one doesn't look real good. Sorry, I didn't clean that one up. The hole is bigger in the channel so that the head of the bolt can go through there. And that's the smallest head you're going to get, so it all makes sense to do it that way. So that's what I've been doing. It's been working out real well. There's no need to tap an end that is going to be in a finished area where you don't want, let's say it's a top rail, and you don't want that top rail to have the head of this in it. You just want it to be smooth. Then, you don't need to worry about tapping your connection there. And in a case like that, chances are the weight bearing, the way it's set up, having your corner bracket is going to be is going to be enough. Another caution, I see a lot of guys talking about trying to reduce cost, which this stuff costs money. I don't know what to tell you. It just costs money. The 80-20 brackets and stuff are grossly expensive. Worth it? Yeah, probably. Probably. But, they're certainly accurate and they work and they're designed well and all of that. But when you're talking, up to like $4 for a corner bracket, and stuff like that, wow, it just gets pricey. Anyway, what I've seen on YouTube is a lot of guys trying to make their own. Problem with that is if you need a corner bracket, for example, a 90-degree bracket, 90 degrees goes 1.5 inches up and 1.5 inches out, has a hole in it. And the 80-20 one, you'll notice the extrusion has a radius to the inside corner. If you look at a snap-on wrench, snap-on wrenches between the jaws have a radius between the two jaws. If you look at a cheap wrench, a cheaper brand, they will come to a V. That wrench with the V will crack or break at the point in that V way before that snap-on wrench will ever crack or break with that radius. A radius is the strongest shape you can use between 2 points to bear load, weight, force, whatever. So in this case, that L bracket, that 90-degree bracket, is radiused on the inside corner. It's square on the outside to fit in tight to the extrusion, but it's radiused on the inside corner, so it gives you maximum strength, and that thing's not going to collapse. Lots of guys say, oh, I went to wherever, and Home Depot, and I got some, 1.5 inch aluminum, and just cut it to lengths and drilled it myself. And, well, my drill holes aren't that great, but they work. And I was surprised, though, at how weak these things are. Well, yeah, they're weak because the inside corner on the angle bracket or on the aluminum angle material is square, just like the outside corner. That square corner is the weakest spot on that thing, and that's where it's going to break. And that's why the 80-20 ones are radiused. So, point to that long story is think about what you're trying to do. If all you're trying to do is hold it in position, while you bolt things together, no big deal. If you're looking for strength, then you got to think about what you're doing. Obviously, for strength, one of the best things you can use, and I know they're available in the US, haven't found them in Canada yet, and I'm going to try and make my own. I think I have a way of doing it. But in the US, 80-20 offers a piece of this in various lengths. I think they go like 3, 6, and 12 inch or something like that are cut on a 45 at either end. So they go in a corner, and this becomes a corner brace. So you're getting, 3 inches up and out. So the strength is fantastic. Anytime you can triangulate a corner, you're going to get maximum strength out of it. So I'm going to try making those. I'm not big on trying to make a lot of my own stuff here. But I'm going to try making those because I just can't find them in Canada. Other stuff, yeah, you could copy, you get 1/4 inch plate. They make some corner brackets and stuff, and some pieces for joining pieces together. You could go and get 1/4 inch aluminum, lay it out, copy their pattern, drill holes, do the whole thing. What's your time worth? I know the damn bracket is $4.60 or whatever, but man, oh man, I can't work for a long time for $4.60. Now, if you're doing it in your spare time or whatever, what difference does it make, I guess? But anyway, I look at the time involved, and tough to justify, I think. So that's a little bit about that stuff. One other tip I want to give you, I told you about the saw. Definitely look at Evolution saws. That Evolution stuff just kicks ass. But the other thing I wanted to show you, for tapping, well, for doing all kinds of stuff, tapping, drilling, whatever. Sean at SNS Customs got me onto this stuff. Anchor lube. And I found it at KMS Tool. It's not everywhere yet. And it's funny. I don't know if it's funny stuff, but it's it's not like an oil. It's more like a lotion. Anyway, it's more like the consistency of a hand lotion or something. Sean told me that he just loves it and won't use anything else now. I saw it at KMS Tools, so I grabbed some, and for tapping, way better than cutting oil. Way, way better. Really, really nice. And especially in a case like this where I know I'm pushing it past its limit. I'm doing more with the tap than I really should be. That just makes it cut so nice. It's fantastic. So my results with Anchor Lube so far, you want to get yourself some of this shit because it works. That's all I have for you right now, but shortly here I'm going to record a segment on the actual frame and where I'm at with that and how I'm figuring that out. And yeah, it's all good. This thing's going to be rocking, and this is way better than wood. Trust me. All right. See you soon.